The Loch Ness Monster, affectionately nicknamed Nessie, is one of the world's most famous legendary creatures. According to Scottish folklore, Nessie is a large, long-necked aquatic animal said to inhabit Loch Ness, a deep freshwater lake in the Scottish Highlands. Reports typically describe a creature with a serpentine neck and one or more humps rising from the water. Ever since a dramatic sighting in 1933 brought Nessie to international attention, the monster has captured the public's imagination with a mix of fascination and skepticism. To this day, evidence of Nessie's existence remains anecdotal, based on eyewitness accounts, disputed photographs, and inconclusive sonar readings. The scientific community largely attributes sightings to hoaxes, wishful thinking, or misidentifications of ordinary objects and animals. Yet the enduring legend continues to thrive, blending serious investigation with playful speculation. Legends of mysterious water creatures in the Scottish Highlands long predate the modern Nessie craze. The earliest known reference often cited by believers comes from the 6th century, the story of Saint Columba. In 565 AD, according to a biography by Adomnan, Saint Columba encountered locals burying a man who had been attacked by a water beast near the River Ness. Columba allegedly sent one of his followers to swim across the river, and when the beast rushed at the swimmer, the saint invoked the sign of the cross and commanded the creature to retreat. Miraculously, the monster halted and fled as if pulled back with ropes, sparing the man's life. Believers point to this dramatic tale as evidence that something strange inhabited Loch Ness, or its connecting river, over 1,500 years ago. Skeptics, however, question the Columba legend's reliability. Medieval hagiographies, saints' lives, often included fantastical water beast stories as morality tales. Scholars note that such accounts were common motifs, and that Adomnan may have simply recorded a local folktale or used a well-known trope rather than documenting a real creature. In other words, the monster in Columba's story could have been a literary device or mythological metaphor, later linked to Loch Ness by believers seeking to validate Nessie's ancient origins. Some researchers, like Ronald Binns, conclude there is no solid evidence of a continuous monster tradition at Loch Ness before the 20th century. Nonetheless, the St. Columba story remains a staple in the Nessie lore, illustrating that the Highlands have long been fertile ground for fantastic tales of water beasts. Beyond the Columba incident, Scottish folklore is rich with creatures like kelpies, shape-shifting water horses said to haunt lakes and rivers. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, locals around Loch Ness and other lochs shared cautionary tales of kelpies luring unwary travelers to a watery doom. An old Scottish newspaper from 1879 even mentioned a water horse at Loch Ness, indicating such legends were attached to this locale decades before Nessie became a household name. These kelpie myths often described a supernatural horse or monster inhabiting the loch, perhaps to keep children away from dangerous waters. Some folklorists suggest that modern Nessie sightings evolved from these earlier horse-like creature stories, which gradually changed as people became aware of dinosaurs and science, shifting from horse imagery to plesiosaur-like descriptions. In fact, the very idea that Nessie might be a prehistoric survivor, like a plesiosaur, could be seen as a modernization of old folklore, blending the ancient kelpie legends with the modern imagination of lost world creatures. Despite these intriguing connections, recent analyses argue that the link between traditional Highland folklore and the media-fueled Nessie phenomenon is not as direct as often assumed. One researcher concluded that although Loch Ness had the most folklore mentions of water horses among Highland lochs, those tales likely exist independently of the Nessie legend which exploded in the 1930s. In summary, the area around Loch Ness already had an air of mystery thanks to centuries of folklore. The stage was set for a legend. All it needed was a spark in modern times to bring the monster from folklore into the headlines. That spark came in the early 1930s, when a series of sightings transformed Nessie from obscurity to worldwide fame. The year 1933 is generally cited as the birth of the Loch Ness Monster legend in its contemporary form. In April 1933, a local Inverness couple named Aldi and John Mackay were driving along the coastal road, the A82, when Aldi reportedly spotted a tremendous commotion in the loch's waters. She cried out, "Stop! The beast!" as they watched an enormous creature rolling and plunging on the lake's surface. The water was cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron as the dark form moved about before disappearing with a huge splash, sending out waves big enough to have been caused by a passing steamer. This dramatic account, with such vivid imagery, was soon published on May 2, 1933, in the local newspaper the Inverness Courier under the headline, "Strange Spectacle in Loch Ness." It was written by Alex Campbell, a water bailiff and part-time journalist, who notably referred to the creature as a monster, perhaps the first use of that word in the context of Loch Ness. According to later recollections, the newspaper's editor, Evan Barron, may have coined the term Loch Ness Monster, a catchy name that would grip the public's imagination. Once that name appeared, the legend truly had a name and identity. Nessie was born. Interest snowballed rapidly. In July 1933, just weeks after the Mackay's story, another prominent sighting made headlines. George Spicer and his wife were motoring along the loch when they saw what Spicer described as the nearest approach to a dragon or prehistoric animal that I have ever seen in my life, crossing the road. The creature, he said, had a huge body about 25 feet long, a neck like an elephant's trunk that undulated up and down, and it lumbered into the water, leaving crushed undergrowth in its wake. The Spicers saw no limbs, and the animal seemed to carry something in its mouth as it vanished into the loch. The notion of a prehistoric animal in Loch Ness took hold, fueled by Spicer's report. Interestingly, some skeptics later suggested that Spicer's imagination might have been influenced by the movie King Kong, released in 1933, which featured a long-necked lake monster scene. Whether or not that's true, the timing of King Kong's popularity and the Nessie craze is a curious coincidence noted by historians. With multiple sensational sightings in the press, the Loch Ness area was gripped by monster mania. Crowds of curious visitors and journalists began staking out the loch's shores that summer, hoping to glimpse the beast. Entrepreneurial minds added to the fervor. A British circus offered a £20,000 reward for capturing the monster alive. Soon, hunters armed with binoculars and cameras, and even big-game harpoons, showed up, turning tranquil Loch Ness into a hotbed of amateur expeditions. In late 1933, the London Daily Mail hired a big-game hunter, Marmaduke Wetherell, to investigate. Wetherell scoured the loch for evidence and excitedly announced he'd found footprints of the monster on the shore. For a brief moment, it seemed like physical proof of Nessie, until researchers from the Natural History Museum examined the tracks. The footprints turned out to be a prank. They had been made with a dried hippopotamus foot, probably an umbrella stand or ashtray, rather than a Loch Ness creature. The Daily Mail, embarrassed by the hoax, ridiculed Wetherell in print. It said that the humiliated hunter plotted revenge, and in doing so, helped orchestrate the most famous Nessie image of all time. In April 1934, the saga continued with a milestone that would define Nessie's legend, the so-called surgeon's photograph. Published in the Daily Mail, this black-and-white photo appeared to show a slender head and long neck rising out of the water, creating ripples around a mysterious creature, much like a plesiosaur of the Jurassic seas. The picture was attributed to Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London surgeon who claimed he snapped the photo at Loch Ness while on a fishing trip. The image became an overnight sensation. Here, it seemed, was hard evidence of the monster, a clear image of something unexplained in the lake's misty waters. For decades, the surgeon's photograph was Nessie in the public mind. It featured in countless articles and books, and inspired many to believe that a prehistoric survivor lurked in Loch Ness. However, as with so many aspects of the Loch Ness story, there was more than met the eye. Skeptics had long suspected the photo didn't show a gigantic beast. The scale was hard to judge, and some noted that in uncropped versions of the image, the ripples looked small, suggesting the object might also be small. Indeed, analyses over the years pointed out inconsistencies. The ripples in the photo better matched those of a small object close-up, not a huge creature far away. Finally, 60 years later, the truth was revealed. In 1994, it came to light that the surgeon's photo was an elaborate hoax orchestrated by none other than Marmaduke Wetherell and his associates. Wetherell, seeking payback against the Daily Mail, had enlisted his son and stepson in a scheme to create a fake monster. They built a small model monster, a toy submarine fitted with a sculpted head and neck, and covertly launched it on the Loch. Dr. Wilson's role was simply to lend credibility by fronting the photo. He was a respectable surgeon who enjoyed practical jokes. The ruse worked brilliantly. Wilson's name gave the photo authority, and Wetherell got his revenge by fooling the world. Christian Sperling, Wetherell's stepson and the model maker, confessed to the hoax on his deathbed in 1991, and researchers later published the full story with corroborating details. The monster in the famous photo was only a few feet long and made of wood putty. With that, the most iconic piece of Nessie evidence was relegated to the realm of myth and mischief, though notably, this expose did little to dampen public enthusiasm for the legend. Even while the surgeon's photo held the limelight, other sightings and claims continued through the 1930s. In January 1934, a motorcyclist named Arthur Grant had a startling late-night encounter. Around 1 a.m., on a moonlit road near the loch, Grant nearly collided with a creature that scurried across his path. He described it as having a small head on a long neck, and a body somewhat like a cross between a seal and a plesiosaur, with flippers instead of feet. Grant, a veterinary student, even sketched the creature. When naturalists reviewed his story, they noted it could well have been an otter or seal seen under poor light, its size exaggerated in Grant's memory. And in 1938, William Fraser, the chief constable of Inverness Shire, wrote a confidential letter voicing concern that the monster's existence was taken beyond doubt by many, and that a hunting party with a custom harpoon gun was prowling the area, determined to catch Nessie, dead or alive. Fraser admitted he was not sure he could stop such hunters, implicitly acknowledging that even authorities thought something might be in the loch. This incredible document shows how real the monster had become in the public consciousness within just a few years of the first news stories. By the end of the 1930s, Loch Ness had become a household name and a symbol of enduring mystery. The flurry of sightings, photos, and media attention firmly established the modern legend. World War II brought a lull to Nessie hunting as attention turned to global events, but the monster was now swimming through popular culture and collective curiosity. In the post-war decades, new chapters of the Nessie saga would unfold as technology and science joined the search. After World War II, interest in the Loch Ness Monster resurfaced and grew, this time with more organized efforts and scientific approaches. As tourism to the highlands increased, monster hunters armed with cameras, binoculars, and eventually sonar machines came to Loch Ness in hopes of finally uncovering Nessie's secrets. The period from the 1950s through the 1970s was marked by numerous expeditions and intriguing pieces of evidence, some of which remain puzzling, while others have been explained or debunked. One early technological hint of something unusual came in December 1954, when the fishing boat Rival 3 was traversing Loch Ness. The crew reported a remarkable sonar contact, a large moving object keeping pace below their boat at a depth of around 146 meters, 479 feet. The unknown target was detected for about 800 meters, half a mile, before contact was lost. This was one of the first sonar readings to suggest a large, solid object in the depths, and it caused quite a stir. Earlier sonar attempts at the loch had proven inconclusive, so the 1954 incident stood out. Though nothing could be identified from the sonar blip, It fueled the idea that a sizable creature might indeed be lurking in the abyss of Loch Ness. In the mid-1950s, photographic evidence also emerged. In July 1955, Peter McNab took a photograph from near Urquhart Castle that appeared to show two long black humps in the water. This photo wasn't publicized until a couple of years later, but when it surfaced, it became another piece of the Nessie puzzle. Some were impressed by the apparent double hump of a large creature, but skeptics like author Ronald Binns later argued that McNab's picture could easily have been a trick of the light or a wave formation caused by multiple boats. Indeed, when researchers examined the circumstances, suspicions arose that the photo might have been doctored. The negative and the print didn't quite match, suggesting possible manipulation by rephotographing a print. As with many Nessie photos, controversy hangs over this image, and it's not regarded as definitive proof. Perhaps the most famous motion picture evidence came in 1960. Tim Dinsdale, an aeronautical engineer with a passion for the hunt, filmed a mysterious object moving in Loch Ness. On his very last day of searching, Dinsdale caught on his 16mm camera a dark hump crossing the water, creating a wake behind it. Through binoculars, he thought the object looked reddish with a mottled surface. The film, while grainy, clearly shows something leaving a V-shaped wake in an otherwise calm lake. When the film was later analyzed by the UK's Joint Air Reconnaissance Intelligence Centre, JARIC, experts cautiously concluded that the object was probably animate. In other words, a living thing, not a boat. This was a startling endorsement for monster enthusiasts, and Dinsdale's footage became a cornerstone of pro-Nessie arguments for years. In 1993, a Discovery Channel documentary digitally enhanced the Dinsdale film and claimed to see the shadowy form of a body underwater, as if a large creature was just beneath the surface towing the visible hump. One analyst involved famously admitted, "Before I saw the film, I thought the Loch Ness Monster was a load of rubbish. Having done the enhancement, I'm not so sure." However, as compelling as the Dinsdale film seemed, further analyses eventually offered a more mundane explanation. Skeptics demonstrated that the movement and appearance in Dinsdale's footage could very well have been a small boat. Later recreations and study pointed out that under certain lighting, a distant boat can look like a single hump, and that the monster never actually submerged in the film. It simply blended into the background as it turned, much as a boat would. Adjustments to the estimated scale and speed also undermined the initial interpretation. What JARIC thought was a huge fast creature might have been an ordinary vessel misjudged due to the camera angle. Dinsdale himself is not accused of any hoax. By all accounts, he genuinely believed in what he saw and devoted his life to the search thereafter. But his famous film, while still cited by some as evidence, is no longer considered unexplainable. It's a case study in how confirmation bias and the will to believe can make us see more in an image than is truly there. As sightings persisted, a more systematic approach was taken in the 1960s. In 1962, several enthusiasts, including MP David James and naturalist Peter Scott, founded the Loch Ness Phenomena Investigation Bureau, LNPIB. For a decade, 1962 to 1972, the LNPIB maintained a presence at the loch. They set up observation sites with timed cameras and binoculars and recruited volunteers to watch the waters in shifts. The idea was to have eyes and lenses on Nessie as continuously as possible. While the Bureau gathered a number of films and photos of alleged sightings, none provided the crystal-clear proof they sought. They did, however, help keep Nessie in the news and applied some scientific rigor to the hunt. By 1972, funding and enthusiasm waned, and the Bureau disbanded without having solved the mystery. But their efforts paved the way for future scientific endeavors. The 1970s saw a new wave of investigations, often led by American patent lawyer and adventurer Robert Rines, alongside British researchers. Rines, working with the Academy of Applied Science, conducted several high-tech expeditions. In 1972, his team deployed underwater strobe lights and cameras in the loch's depths. In one famous incident, the cameras captured a blurry underwater image that looked vaguely like the flipper of a giant aquatic animal. When this photo was enhanced, it showed what appeared to be a diamond-shaped flipper, not unlike that of a plesiosaur. This caused a sensation. Did we finally have a picture of Nessie's body part? The image made its way into a prestigious science journal, Nature, in 1975, when Rines and co-authors published a paper about unusual findings in Loch Ness. However, skeptics noted that the flipper photo had been heavily retouched to bring out the shape, raising concerns about how much was real versus imagined. Later analysis of the original unenhanced image suggested that it was so indistinct that one could barely make anything out until filters were applied, so the flipper might have been an artifact of that process. Rines' team also captured other curious images, including one interpreted as a gargoyle-like head and another as the body of a creature, but these too were inconclusive. They were dark, murky, and open to multiple interpretations: a log, a fish, light tricks. In fact, a subsequent expedition in the 1980s found a submerged tree stump on the loch floor that looked strikingly similar to the so-called gargoyle head photo, suggesting that's all it was. Despite the ambiguity, Rines remained convinced Nessie was real. He even claimed to have seen a large animal surface in 1972. He returned to Loch Ness repeatedly over the years, even as late as 2008 in his 80s, with ever-improving equipment, but ultimately did not obtain the undeniable proof he sought. Not all supposed evidence in the 1970s was earnest. One notorious incident in 1977 produced what came to be nicknamed the Loch Ness Muppet. A man named Anthony "Doc" Shields, a magician and psychic, announced he had not only seen Nessie but summoned it from the depths, photographing it from the shore near Urquhart Castle. The resulting photo showed a very clear image of a head and long neck protruding from the water. It was arguably the clearest Nessie photo ever, and that was its red flag. The head looked almost too cartoonish, like a smiling puppet, and oddly there were no ripples around the neck, suggesting a superimposed image or a staged object. Shields cheerfully described the creature as an elephant squid, with its trunk acting as the neck and a white spot as the eye. But few took him seriously. Most investigators quickly labeled the photo an obvious hoax, hence the Muppet moniker, implying it was as real as a Jim Henson creation. This episode showed that as serious studies went on, others were happy to play pranks, muddying the waters, literally and figuratively, of the Loch Ness mystery. By the late 1980s, the hunt for Nessie received its most extensive sonar sweep to date. In 1987, Operation Deep Scan assembled a fleet of 24 boats lined up across the width of Loch Ness, all equipped with state-of-the-art echo sounders. Over several days, they traversed the loch in formation, sending a synchronized curtain of sonar beams into the deep. The goal was to detect any large moving objects. The results? Deep Scan did find some unusual sonar contacts. At one point, multiple sonar units picked up a strong return of an object at a depth of around 180 meters, 590 feet, in the vicinity of Urquhart Bay. This contact was notable enough that the boats circled back to scan again. When analyzed, most of the sonar hits seemed to be debris or clutter on the loch bottom, but 3 of the contacts showed movement, indicating something alive. Lead researcher Adrian Shine cautiously speculated these could have been seals that somehow entered the loch, which is plausible occasionally. However, one sonar expert on the team, Daryl Lawrence, the founder of Lawrence Electronics, who donated equipment for the project, expressed intrigue. After seeing the sonar readings of a particularly large, moving target, Lawrence stated, "There's something here that we don't understand, and there's something here that's larger than a fish. Maybe some species that hasn't been detected before. I don't know." Coming from a sonar pioneer, that quote was gold for Nessie enthusiasts. It wasn't a confirmation of the monster, but it wasn't a dismissal either. It acknowledged the unknown. Just a few years later, in 2003, the BBC decided to apply a final word on Nessie, or so they hoped, by funding the most extensive search to date, combining sonar and satellite navigation. They called this program Searching for the Loch Ness Monster, and it employed 600 sonar beams and rigorous scanning of the loch, with GPS to precisely log every sweep. The resolution was fine enough that they could even detect a small buoy in the water. After an exhaustive sweep, the BBC team announced that no large animal was found. If Nessie existed, it wasn't in the loch during their search. The scientists rather bluntly concluded that this was evidence the Loch Ness Monster is a myth, and the BBC aired the documentary with a tone of debunking finality. Of course, Nessie believers quickly pointed out that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Loch Ness, with its peat-stained waters and complex underwater topology, might still hide an elusive creature. The legend survived the BBC's high-tech verdict. In fact, critics of the search noted that a creature could have been in underwater caves or simply not surfaced during the sonar passes. Thus, even no evidence became a discussion point rather than a conclusion. With decades of data, and lack thereof, scientists and researchers have proposed many explanations for what might really lie behind the Loch Ness Monster sightings. As one Nessie investigator put it, there is probably no single explanation. The monster may be a mosaic of different phenomena, from animals to illusions. Over time, explanations have ranged from the straightforward to the fanciful. Let's explore the leading theories, from misidentified creatures to outright hoaxes, and some imaginative ideas in between. Psychology and perception. One overarching factor often cited, especially by skeptics like Ronald Binns, is human psychology. People see what they want or expect to see. Loch Ness has a reputation for a monster, so any unusual sight can be interpreted as Nessie rather than something ordinary. Binns, who wrote the influential book The Loch Ness Mystery Solved, 1983, and an updated Reloaded, 2017, suggests Nessie is essentially a sociological phenomenon, a modern myth that people keep alive through belief and misperception. He notes that eyewitness testimony, while sincerely given, can't always be trusted when excitement and expectation run high. According to Binns, after 1933, the world was so enthralled by the possibility of a monster that many separate mundane events, swimming deer, floating logs, wind slicks on the water, have been woven into a grand shared narrative. In his view, Loch Ness is a myth in the true sense of the term, not a deliberate hoax, but a collective creation that enthralls us nonetheless. Known animals, misidentifications. The simplest explanation for many sightings is that people are seeing real animals, just misidentified or seen under unusual conditions. A variety of candidates have been proposed. Eels. Loch Ness is home to European eels, Anguilla anguilla, which are common in Scottish lochs. These eels typically grow a few feet long, but could they sometimes grow much larger? The idea of a giant eel has been floated since the 1930s and remains one of the more plausible theories. If an eel of exceptional length, say 10 to 20 feet, were swimming near the surface, it might appear as a series of humps or a long serpentine shape. Notably, when a major DNA survey of Loch Ness was conducted in 2018, scientists found no genetic traces of sharks, sturgeons, or other large fish, and none of plesiosaurs or other reptiles. But they did find an abundance of eel DNA. Professor Neil Gemmell, who led the study, stated that while they didn't find evidence of one supersized eel, the sheer quantity of eel DNA suggests a population of eels is definitely present, and he couldn't rule out the possibility of one or two becoming extraordinarily big. Many scientists now lean toward giant eels as a likely source of Nessie reports, at least for those describing something long and sinuous. Interestingly, some historical water kelpie legends might also trace back to sightings of large eels in Scottish lakes. Fish, Wells catfish, or sturgeon. Another fishy candidate is the Wells catfish, a huge freshwater fish native to Eurasia that can grow 8 to 13 feet long. Wells catfish are not native to Scotland, but there were rumors of them being introduced to British lakes in the 19th century for sport fishing. In 2015, Steve Feltham, a man who famously gave up his normal life to spend decades, 24+ years, watching for Nessie from the loch's shores, made headlines by announcing his conclusion that Nessie is likely an outsized Wells catfish. Feltham told reporters, "Looking at all the evidence, speaking to eyewitnesses, the most likely solution is a Wells catfish." Coming from someone who had dedicated his life to the mystery, recognized by Guinness World Records for the longest Nessie vigil, this was significant. He essentially conceded there's no supernatural beast, but possibly a big fish. Catfish can have long, curvy bodies and surface occasionally. A giant one could account for hump sightings. The DNA search, however, found no catfish DNA in Loch Ness, making this less likely unless the catfish presence is very small or gone. Another fish often suggested historically is the sturgeon. These ancient-looking, armor-plated fish have been known to wander into freshwater and can be over 10 feet long. A stray sturgeon in Loch Ness, maybe coming from the sea via rivers, could certainly wow observers. But again, the 2018 DNA study found no sturgeon DNA, and no confirmed catches of sturgeon in Loch Ness have occurred. Seals or otters. Loch Ness is connected to the sea via the River Ness and the Caledonian Canal, so it's not impossible for a stray seal to swim in from the North Sea coast. In fact, seals have been occasionally reported in Loch Ness. A seal's head popping up could easily be mistaken for a single hump or a head and neck at a distance, with the rest of the body submerged. Otters, which do live in the loch, often swim in lines of 2 or 3, which might create the illusion of multiple humps appearing and diving in sequence. Photographs of otters or even deer swimming have at times been misinterpreted as Nessie until properly identified. Adrian Shine once noted that anything you see on Loch Ness which you cannot immediately recognize will be your Nessie for that moment, highlighting how our brains can turn a brief glimpse of an otter's back into a monster in our imagination. Birds and other animals. Some sightings of a long neck might actually be birds. A line of swimming birds, like a group of loons or ducks, can create a series of moving shapes on the water that from a distance look like a single object undulating. Large birds like swans or even deer crossing the loch, yes, deer will swim across on occasion, present silhouettes that could confuse an observer momentarily. Each case can differ, but nature offers many red herrings for the monster hunter. Inanimate objects and natural phenomena. Beyond animals, Loch Ness has a few tricks that could deceive the eye and camera. Logs and driftwood. The highlands are wooded in parts, and Loch Ness occasionally receives drifting logs, branches, or even entire tree trunks, especially after storms. Waterlogged pine logs can ferment underwater, accumulating gases until they suddenly shoot to the surface and bob around. One scientist, Maurice Burton, wrote in New Scientist that many monster sightings might have been floating logs propelled by gas, the protruding branches resembling the neck and humps. Indeed, a 1933 newspaper photo showed a weirdly shaped tree trunk that washed ashore, suggesting that might have started the whole thing. Peat debris and mats of vegetation can also form dark, hump-like shapes. Boat wakes and waves. Loch Ness, when calm, can be like a mirror, and it has some unique wave dynamics. Sometimes a boat passing through can leave a wake that refracts along the loch's straight channel and appears long after the boat is gone or out of sight. Such a V-shaped wake with no obvious cause can easily look like a moving creature from shore. People have reported unexplained wakes or disturbances, describing them as something zigzagging, diving, and reappearing. In many cases, these likely are water movements known as seaches, standing waves that slosh back and forth in a lake after wind or pressure changes. Loch Ness's shape, 23 miles long and very straight, makes it prone to seaches with a 31.5-minute oscillation period. These can cause surface disturbances that might look like a series of ripples or humps traveling with purpose. Even on a smaller scale, Winds can create patches of rough water next to calm, glassy areas, generating optical illusions from afar. Reflections and lighting can play bizarre tricks too. Mirages over cold water can distort objects. One researcher demonstrated that heat haze and refraction can elongate or magnify something as simple as a boat or a rock, making it look monster-like under certain conditions. Seismic activity. A more unusual theory relates to geology. Loch Ness lies along the Great Glen Fault, a tectonic fault line. Italian geologist Luigi Picardi proposed that some reports of the monster, especially ones mentioning great turbulence or roaring noises, might coincide with earth tremors or releases of gas from the fault beneath the lake. The St. Columba story, for instance, described the monster coming with a loud roar, which could have been an earthquake event in the year 565 if one were to rationalize it scientifically. Occasional bubbles or boils in the water might be due to gas releases. While this doesn't explain sightings of a neck or body, it's a reminder that Loch Ness's environment itself can be dynamic and surprising, outright hoaxes. Finally, we must acknowledge that some Nessie events were deliberate fakes. We've already covered the surgeon's photo and Doc Shiel's picture. There have been others. In 1959, an Italian reporter covering Loch Ness admitted he fabricated some monster reports to spice up his story. In 1972, a team from Yorkshire's Flamingo Park Zoo dumped a fake monster corpse into Loch Ness, actually a dead elephant seal they'd tampered with, and discovered it, briefly fooling the press until the prank was exposed. In 2004, a BBC TV crew built a realistic animatronic plesiosaur and submerged it, as part of an experiment to test if people would be fooled. They were. Hoaxes are part of the Nessie lore from the beginning. Remember those hippo footprints in 1933? Often conducted in good fun or for publicity. These stunts, once revealed, tend to reinforce skeptics' views that the monster is all humbug. But interestingly, they rarely dampen the true believer's enthusiasm. If anything, each hoax just adds another chapter to the legend, and the genuine mystery remains unsolved. Other exotic theories. Over the years, some truly wild ideas have been proposed. For example, could Nessie be a surviving plesiosaur from the age of dinosaurs? This concept took hold early. Spicer's 1933 description, and later Arthur Grant's, both likened the creature to a prehistoric reptile. Science argues it's implausible. Plesiosaurs were marine reptiles, presumed cold-blooded, and would not likely survive undetected in a cold freshwater loch, nor would a breeding population escape notice or extinction. The fossil record also shows plesiosaurs died out 65 million years ago. Yet the plesiosaur image remains iconic in illustrations of Nessie. Other theorists have suggested a stray Greenland shark, a huge shark that can live in the cold, deep North Atlantic, might occasionally venture into the loch. Extreme ideas even include Nessie being an extraterrestrial pet or a trans-dimensional being. These appear in some sci-fi and fantasy portrayals. Needless to say, no evidence exists for such explanations. They reside purely in the imaginative, fun domain of the legend. In truth, most researchers who think something is behind the sightings lean toward large fish or eels, as noted above. And many believe it's not one single monster over decades, but rather individual incidents. Perhaps one time an eel, another time a swimming deer, another time a hoax, collectively woven into the Nessie tapestry. It's important to note that even those who seek rational explanations often do so out of love for the mystery. Naturalist Adrian Shine, for instance, has dedicated over 40 years to studying Loch Ness, trying to demystify it scientifically. He and others concede that as long as people want to believe, the legend will persist. As Shine famously said, "There will be a Loch Ness Monster as long as people want there to be." This sentiment highlights that the power of Nessie lies not just in biology, but in our imagination. The Loch Ness Monster's fame extends far beyond the loch itself. Nessie has become a pop culture icon, appearing in countless books, films, TV shows, and other media around the world. Indeed, the legend's hold on our collective imagination owes much to these fictional and fantastical portrayals, which have kept Nessie in the public eye for generations of children and adults alike. Literature and early fiction. Almost immediately after the 1933 Sightings made headlines, writers began incorporating Nessie into stories. One of the first fictional works was a short story in January 1934 titled The Monster of the Loch by William J. Machen. In May 1934, the monster hit the silver screen for the first time in a British film called The Secret of the Loch, which is notable for being the earliest movie about Nessie. From that point on, Nessie started popping up in various genres of fiction. In children's literature, for example, Nessie is often portrayed as a gentle or whimsical creature. The picture book, The Mysterious Tadpole, 1977, imagined a child raising a tadpole that grows into a Loch Ness Monster. And beloved poet Ted Hughes wrote Nessie the Mannerless Monster, 1992, about the monster visiting London. These charming interpretations helped endear Nessie to kids worldwide, painting her as more of a friendly monster than a fearsome beast. In more adult fiction and science fiction, Nessie has starred in cryptozoological thrillers and horror tales. A notable example is the novel The Loch, 2005, by Steve Alton, which mixes the monster legend with a modern techno-thriller plot. Science fiction has even toyed with Nessie's nature. One 1975 episode of Doctor Who, titled Terror of the Zygons, cleverly explained the Loch Ness Monster as an alien cyborg creature controlled by extraterrestrials. In that story, the monster, called a scaracin, roams the loch at the alien's behest, a far-out twist on the legend. Other fantastical explanations in fiction include shape-shifting Nessies, such as in Susan Cooper's The Boggart and the Monster, 1997, where Nessie is a boggart, spirit, stuck in monster form. Clearly, authors have had great fun over the years reimagining what Nessie could be, from dinosaurs to dragons to spirits. On the big screen, Nessie's film career deserves special mention. We've already noted the first Nessie film in 1934, but there have been many since, spanning genres from comedy to horror to family adventure. Comedy. In 1961, a British comedy film called What a Whopper centered on a scheme to fake the Loch Ness Monster for profit, featuring a young Adam Faith. It was a light-hearted caper poking fun at the Nessie hype. More recently, the mockumentary Incident at Loch Ness, 2004, offered a witty, self-aware take. It pretended to document director Werner Herzog's attempt to make a Nessie film, only for bizarre events to unfold during the production. The film plays with fact and fiction and includes Herzog himself, giving a humorous meta-commentary on our obsession with monsters. Heartfelt family films. Nessie has often been portrayed sympathetically. The film Loch Ness, 1996, starring Ted Danson, depicts an American scientist who travels to Loch Ness and indeed discovers the monster, which turns out to be a gentle, almost magical creature guarding its young. The story is more about wonder and connection than horror. Similarly, The Water Horse, Legend of the Deep, 2007, is a family film in which a young Scottish boy raises a mysterious egg that hatches into an adorable creature, essentially a baby Nessie. As it grows, it becomes the famed Loch Ness Monster. This film cleverly ties Nessie to the Scottish Kelpie folklore by suggesting the monster is actually a fabled water horse that the locals misinterpret. The water horse showcases Nessie as majestic and friendly, reinforcing the trend of the monster as a benevolent being in modern family entertainment. Animation and children's TV. Nessie has guest-starred in cartoons and animations as well. Notably, Scooby-Doo and the Loch Ness Monster, 2004, is a direct-to-video animated movie where the Scooby Gang travels to Loch Ness. True to Scooby-Doo form, they investigate sightings of Nessie which, spoiler, ends up involving masked villains, though the ending leaves a little ambiguity as to whether the real Nessie might also exist, maintaining the legend's mystique. Nessie also appears in episodes of various animated series and even in video games as a fun Easter egg or character. Horror and sci-fi. While less common than friendly depictions, There are films that cast Nessie as a fearsome monster. A low-budget example is The Loch Ness Horror, 1981, which portrays the monster in a B-movie horror style. Another is Loch Ness Terror, 2008, also known as Beyond Loch Ness on TV, which imagines Nessie as a man-eating predator and even adds the twist of baby Nessies on the loose. These films take creative liberties, often showing much more aggressive creatures than the historically shy Nessie. They cater to monster movie enthusiasts, but are far from the mainstream, where Nessie is generally seen as elusive, but not overtly dangerous. One fun piece of Nessie lore connected to film. In 1970, famed Hollywood director Billy Wilder filmed The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, which had a plot involving the Loch Ness Monster. For the production, special effects artist Wally Weavers built a 30-foot-long Nessie prop, complete with humps and a long neck. However, Wilder decided he didn't like the humps and had them removed, which made the model unbalanced. During filming, the prop accidentally sank into Loch Ness and rested on the loch bottom for 46 years. In 2016, during a survey with an underwater robot, Adrian Shine's team rediscovered this long-lost movie prop Nessie on the lakebed. It was an amusing full circle. The search for Nessie finding a fake Nessie. The recovery of the sunken prop is a reminder of how the legend and pop culture literally left a piece of itself in the loch. Beyond specific titles, the Loch Ness Monster has become a symbol, often used whenever one needs a reference to a mysterious, unproven entity. Nessie is invoked in everything from political cartoons to advertisements. For example, tech or science problems that are elusive might be nicknamed the Loch Ness Monster of their field. The monster even had a cameo in an episode of The Simpsons, and who can forget that urban legend where a Photoshop of Nessie appears in someone's vacation photos. Nessie has also inspired numerous merchandise. You can find Nessie plush toys, Nessie keychains, and even Nessie-shaped soup ladles. This commercial presence stems from its pop culture status, a friendly monster that everyone knows, even if they don't believe in it. In sum, Nessie in popular culture has been adaptable, sometimes scary, often lovable, occasionally comedic. Each depiction reinforces the monster's fame. These stories and images have done more than just entertain. They feed back into the real-world legend. A child who grows up watching a Nessie movie may become the next tourist at Loch Ness, scanning the waves with hopeful eyes. Beyond folklore and media, the Loch Ness Monster has had very tangible effects on the real world, especially in Scotland. The legend has transformed Loch Ness from just another scenic lake into a global destination, spawning a thriving tourism industry. One might even say Nessie, real or not, is one of Scotland's most successful marketing mascots, bringing in jobs, businesses, and significant revenue to the Highlands. How much economic impact can a myth have? Surprisingly, a lot. A study commissioned in 2018 by Gary Campbell, the chartered accountant who curates the official Loch Ness Monster Sightings register, attempted to quantify Nessie's value to Scotland. By gathering data from tourism boards and local businesses, Campbell concluded that the Loch Ness Monster adds roughly £41 million to Scotland's economy per year. That's about 50 to 55 million US dollars annually, purely thanks to the allure of the monster. To put it in perspective, one writer quipped that this is more than the entire GDP of some small countries. Each year, hundreds of thousands of visitors, some sources say up to 500,000, flock to the Loch Ness area, making it one of the most visited spots outside of Scotland's major cities. People come from all over the world, drawn by the chance, however small, of glimpsing Nessie, or at least to say they've been to the famous Lake of the Monster. Walking around the villages on Loch Ness's shores, it's obvious how Nessie dominates the local economy. The town of Drumnadrochit, for example, hosts the popular Loch Ness Centre and Exhibition, a museum dedicated to the monster's history and the various expeditions to find it. Founded in 1980 by Ronnie Bremner and now run by his son David Bremner, this exhibition guides visitors through Nessie folklore, hoaxes, scientific studies, and findings. David Bremner admits it's a challenge to satisfy the wide range of visitor beliefs. Some people are coming because they think we're going to tell them Nessie is real, and here's the evidence, he says, while others come thinking, I'd like to understand the history and find out what's in the loch. The exhibition aims for a balanced view, acknowledging the fun and lore, but also presenting the facts and doubts. Not every visitor is pleased. True believers might not appreciate skepticism, while total skeptics might roll their eyes at any credence given to the mystery, but the goal is to educate and entertain without taking a firm stance. Bremner notes it's hard to please everyone when covering such a hotly debated subject, but they try to walk that line. Across the road you'll find gift shops with Nessie plush toys, t-shirts, tartan-clad Nessie dolls, and every conceivable souvenir bearing the monster's silhouette. There's even a Nessie-themed adventure park called Nessieland. Cafes and inns sport names like Monster Mash or Nessie's Lodge. This commercialization might seem kitschy, but it highlights how Nessie is the brand of Loch Ness. Gary Campbell humorously points out that Loch Ness is beautiful in its own right, but people come to Loch Ness simply because of Nessie. It's lovely and the scenery is nice and all, but they come because of the Loch Ness Monster. The monster is the hook that gets tourists in the door, and once they're there, they also spend time and money enjoying the natural beauty and other activities of the Highlands. One very popular activity is, of course, taking a boat tour on Loch Ness. Numerous cruise operators run daily excursions on the lake, often with guides recounting Nessie tales and pointing out famous sighting locations. For instance, Loch Ness Cruises, operating since 1988, takes visitors out on a vessel actually named the Nessie Hunter. These boats are typically equipped with sonar scanners, so tourists can watch the sonar screens, half seriously hoping a large blob might appear from the depths. Captain Mike Bell of Loch Ness Cruises says many people on his tours claim to have seen something during the ride, whether a weird reading on sonar or a ripple on the surface. Who knows what they saw, he says with a smile, acknowledging that the excitement is often enough regardless of proof. The cruises usually swing by places like Urquhart Castle, a scenic medieval ruin on the shore that itself draws visitors, and known monster haunts, like the deepest parts of the loch. Bell observes that for most of his passengers, they mainly just want to be able to say they've been out hunting for Nessie. If we spot her, it's just a bonus. In other words, it's the experience, the thrill of the chase, that they seek. And if nothing else, they get a lovely tour of Loch Ness, enjoying the Highland vistas. The tourism boom has undoubtedly brought prosperity to what were once quiet rural communities. Hotels, B&Bs, restaurants, visitor centers, tour companies, all benefit. Bremner, of the Loch Ness Center, noted, "The Loch Ness Monster has brought mass employment into our area." He admits some locals could do without the throngs of tourists, but most recognize that much of the region is very reliant on the tourism. In recent years, especially during global events like the COVID-19 pandemic, locals have been reminded how much their economy leans on visitors. When travel halted in 2020, Loch Ness attractions were hit hard, underscoring how a myth can become an economic lifeline. As soon as the Loch Ness Center reopened after lockdowns, with limited capacity, interest spiked again. People were soon back to monster spotting, both in person and via the internet. There's a 24/7 Loch Ness live cam that hundreds watch in hopes of a remote sighting. Another aspect is that Nessie tourism tends to promote regional exploration. Tour operators and travel writers often say, "Come for the monster, stay for the Highlands." As Campbell puts it, Nessie is like a hook that gets people to visit, but then they discover all the other great things about the area. Tourists drawn by Nessie will also end up hiking in Glen Affric, touring whiskey distilleries, exploring nearby Inverness City, or seeing other historic sites. Loch Ness is a gateway to the Highlands for many international visitors who might not otherwise venture that far north. In that sense, Nessie has indirectly boosted broader Scottish tourism, not just around the lake but in the country's cultural identity. The monster has become an icon of Scottish folklore known worldwide, alongside tartans, bagpipes, and castles. From an economic perspective, one might jokingly say Nessie is the monster that probably doesn't exist, but definitely makes money. There's even a tongue-in-cheek debate occasionally. If Nessie were proven real, would it spoil the fun and thus the tourism? Or conversely, would proof spark even more tourism? Many locals suspect the legend's mystique, the possibility of Nessie, is more powerful than any concrete truth. As long as Nessie's existence is uncertain, people will continue to visit, hoping to be part of the mystery or to see something firsthand. It's telling that despite all the serious attempts to find Nessie, the local economy benefits either way. When new evidence or studies suggest the monster isn't real, like the DNA survey or a failed big search, tourists still come, sometimes even more so to be there before the legend fades, which it never does. And when a sighting makes news, it spikes interest again. In August 2023, for example, a large volunteer effort dubbed the biggest Nessie hunt in 50 years took place, using drones with thermal cameras and underwater microphones over a weekend. It ended with no definitive evidence, just some mysterious sounds that turned out to likely be ducks. But the media coverage of that event once again put Loch Ness in headlines worldwide, undoubtedly enticing a new wave of visitors curious to see the Loch of legend for themselves. As a local hotelier Riley noted, Nessie's biggest gift to us is that she keeps us in the news. The legend constantly renews itself. At the end of the day, whether one views Nessie as a bona fide cryptid or a clever piece of folklore, there's no denying the positive impact on the local community. The monster has essentially become a mascot for the region, a fun, family-friendly mystery that symbolizes the allure of the unknown. And for Scotland at large, Nessie is an instantly recognizable emblem that adds to the country's charm. After all, who doesn't love a good monster story? It's a rare case where everyone, believers, skeptics, and those just along for the ride, can find some enjoyment. As one TripAdvisor reviewer joked after a fruitless day of monster spotting, "I reckon they just made Nessie up to get tourism in." Ah well, it was a nice lake. Even rated 5 stars with no monster in sight, Loch Ness doesn't disappoint. Over 90 years have passed since Nessie first made world news in 1933, and yet the Loch Ness Monster remains as intriguing and popular as ever. We have journeyed through the history of this legend, from ancient folklore of water beasts to the modern media frenzy that gave us iconic images like the surgeon's photo. We've seen how science has systematically approached the mystery, using everything from multi-beam sonars to DNA sequencing, and how each time the results edge us closer to an explanation, giant eels, wandering seals, illusions, without fully quenching the public's thirst for a monster. On the flip side, we've acknowledged the tall tales and hoaxes that have muddied the waters, sometimes literally, yet also added to the fun and lore surrounding Nessie. The Loch Ness Monster endures because it sits at a unique crossroads of imagination and reality. On one hand, serious researchers and credible eyewitnesses will say there's something unexplained in Loch Ness. On the other, equally serious skeptics will say there's nothing at all. And in between are millions of ordinary people who just love the idea that in a high-tech, well-charted world, mysteries can still exist. Nessie embodies that yearning for the fantastical, the notion that perhaps dinosaurs didn't all die out, that perhaps magic isn't entirely gone from nature, or simply that the world still has secrets left to discover. Pop culture has further immortalized Nessie, ensuring each new generation hears the tale. A child might first encounter Nessie in a cartoon or a storybook and be delighted by the friendly lake monster, later learning there's a real place they can visit to hunt for this make-believe friend. An adult might watch a documentary and be surprised at how many intelligent, rational people have been drawn into the search. The legend is constantly renewing itself. As one Nessie expert remarked, if hoaxes, deep scans, and DNA analyses discrediting the creature's existence haven't quelled the public's fascination with Nessie, not much will. Indeed, each scientific dismissal seems to only solidify Nessie's place as the ultimate playful mystery. People love to say, okay, maybe there's no monster, but what if? The Loch Ness story is also a lesson in how human perception and belief work. We see this in the quotes and voices of those involved. The optimism of hunters like Steve Feltham, who, even after concluding it's likely a catfish, continued his vigil because, even if Nessie turns out to be a catfish, I'm still having a ball while others return to routine. Or the reflection of Adrian Shine that, as long as people want a monster, there will be one in Loch Ness. It speaks to the idea that Nessie lives not in the loch, but in our hearts and minds. We, collectively, have willed her into existence through stories and sightings. In a way, Loch Ness has a monster because we love the myth. It's a mirror to our imagination. Such legends drive us to explore and to wonder. They make us gather on cold lake shores at dawn, or tune into a webcam at midnight, or travel thousands of miles just to gaze at a foggy expanse of water and dream about what could be beneath. In a quote from an interview, a local expert was asked point-blank, "Is the Loch Ness Monster real?" He chuckled and answered with philosophical truth, "The Loch Ness Monster is as real as the legend we've created. She's real to the people who believe, and she's real in the way she affects us. Sometimes legends are more powerful than literal truth. So is Nessie out there right now, dipping under the waves? We don't have proof of a flesh and blood creature, but we have something arguably richer, a living legend. As long as the waters of Loch Ness remain dark and deep, and people's imaginations remain alive, Nessie will continue to swim freely in our collective consciousness. There will be a Loch Ness Monster as long as we want there to be. And judging by the enduring fascination, we do want there to be. The final chapter of this story is still unwritten, left for future generations of the curious. Whether Nessie is eventually explained by science or remains an eternal mystery, her impact on culture, on science, on a small highland community, and on our sense of wonder is indisputably real. Nessie's tale encourages us to keep an open mind and a sense of adventure. It reminds us that not every unknown has to be scary. It can be fun and unifying. At Loch Ness, believers and skeptics stand side by side on the shores, trading theories with good-natured humor. Tourists snap photos of empty water and still feel thrilled. The Loch Ness Monster has transcended its original mystery to become a symbol of curiosity, of the allure of the unexplained, and of the interplay between science and legend. In closing, whether you come down on the side of science, show me the evidence, or speculation, I want to believe, the Loch Ness Monster is a story that invites you in. It's an invitation to dream a little, and in a world where facts often triumph over wonder, that is perhaps Nessie's greatest gift. She gives us permission to have a bit of both. So next time you find yourself by the misty banks of Loch Ness, take a moment to scan the surface. You never know. You just might see a ripple that shouldn't be there, a shadow out of the corner of your eye, a long neck in the fading light, or maybe just a wave. Either way, you'll be part of a grand tradition that has been ongoing for decades. And that experience, steeped in history and hope, is the real legend of Loch Ness. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe for more fascinating stories, and ring the bell so you never miss a new episode from Cypher History. Stay curious.